Basement, level vibes with another one, straight up, blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and pon the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata Francis Wakenham, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cop, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data. I have
Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
All right. Sorry, I wasn't even sure whether I was on camera or not. I don't want some of you out there think I'm flirting with you. I don't do that at all. Good night to all of you. If you're celebrating your birth anniversary, happy birthday. Those who celebrate birthdays, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses don't. I've As a little boy, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, so I haven't celebrated my birthday for about 10 years, and so I stopped. I deducted that from my actual age. So for those of you who think I'm in my 80s, okay, sorry. Okay. 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, Mark Benchop, we're going to rock and roll. Thank you all for sharing the link as we prepare to share the links. Guess what? Press conference upon press conference upon press conference upon press conference. Somebody said this and somebody bumps raised and they rushed quickly. They dropped what they were doing to host another press conference. And you all know that Auntie Merle, come on, those of you who are in the audience, you know who Auntie Merle is, right? Drop whatever they were doing and rush to host a press conference right up, right away. Stop whatever. He probably turned and said, Kwame, let's go and do this thing quickly because the pressure is on. How many of you know this song? It's called The Heat Is On. The Heat Is On. Well, guess what? The heat is on for real. We are seeing it live and direct. Bharat Jagdeo is afraid. He's trembling right now in his, but we'll just say boots for now. But he's trembling. And those of you in the audience, those of you in the audience, you can say whatever else you want to say, but we are going to say right here on 107.1 FM that Bharat Jagdeo is trembling in his boots. That is what's happening. Trembling in his boots. Every single minute of the day, left, right, and center. Trembling in his boots. Sorry about that. We had a slight technical problem there. You know, we're going to have to deal with Lemon and that later on. But that's what's happening. Good night to all of you. If you just joined us, guess what? My name is Mark Benchop. Bharat Jagdeo dropped what he was doing to host a press conference to say all bunch of lies, and we all know why he did that, because he's ashamed. His back is against the wall. I don't know what else is against the wall, but it's not up for me to say that. It's for you in the audience to decide on that. And so the AFC held a press conference. They said what they said, and Bharat Jagdeo rushed out of his room, put on a shirt jack. I'm not concerned about what else he put on. It's none of my business, because this is a serious political show. And it shows that he was trembling. He was nervous. And you saw the guy at the press conference. He wasn't his usual self. He started to pale. He was teardrops coming out of his eyes. I saw it. I watched for a few minutes, couldn't take it. So I rushed off to have some milk and rice for dinner. But guess what? Lemon is going to do something here tonight for us. He's going to attempt to get the man who made Bharat Jagdeo rushed off of whatever he was doing. And again, I wish to say it is none of our business. And I really do mean that. It is none of my business. It is not our business here at 107.1 FM to even imagine what Bharat Jagdeo was doing as he rushed to that press conference. Because one of the things I can say to you, he wasn't doing your business of running the country. He was doing the business that Sue spoke to us about. Lemon, can you try to see if we can get Nigel Hughes on this show tonight for a few minutes? How many of you guys think that we'll be lucky enough to get Nigel Hughes, who was just elected the leader of the Alliance for Change? And yeah, thank you so much, Lemon. And so the leader of the Alliance for Change, guess what? Rushed out of the stable. Have you guys gone to horse racing? Well, when I was growing up, we had a horse by the name of Regal Steel. And Regal Steel just wanted to get out, even though he brought a couple of first places, second places, and then the rest of the time. But Nigel Hughes just rushed out of this stable, all over, and he's causing a wave. And Bharat Jagdeo is trembling right now. I mean, if we get a picture, can Lemon, if you zoom in, do we have the camera still in Bharat Jagdeo's house? Do we? Oh, we still have it. Okay, well, we're not going to zoom in right now to let people see what he's doing. But thank you all so much for joining me this evening. It's Friday evening. Thank God it's payday for a lot of you. It is what it is. All right, so Lemon said that he got in touch with Nigel Hughes' team because, Mr. Hughes has a team now. We got to go through switchboards and all manner of things to get on to Mr. Hughes. And he has agreed to be with us here tonight. And we want to ask him some questions. But Barrett Jagdale seems to be afraid of the whole wave that seems to be coming down after him like Hurricane Beryl. Only this time, politically speaking, it's going to be far more disastrous politically in the next elections as they are booted out of office. And I say disastrous through the ballot, mind you, because you know how they like to twist things around, especially Barrett Jagdale. All right, let's try and see. We got Nigel Hughes with us, attorney at law. Before we get that, our guest on, Nigel Hughes, I want to play a song. Lemon, can we play a song just for Barrett Jagdale? Just for him? We know he's watching. We know Kwame said, hurry up and go and watch. This is for Barrett Jagdale as we prepare for Nigel Hughes.
Oh maninja, kena cotton price na pay attack. Price and flour, there a chapa, why you mean attack? Oh maninja, kena cotton price na pay attack. Price and flour, there a chapa, why you mean attack?
All right, as we get on to Nigel Hughes, how many of you guys know this? Rice and flour, dera shapa, awayo minatal, oh maninja. And they're complaining because rice and flour are pretty expensive in Guyana. Not just rice and flour. Every single thing is expensive in that country. Compliments of these individuals who can't even run a cake shop, but they are there pretending as though they're running a country. We are told that Nigel Hughes is with us. Lemon is in the backstage putting on makeup and all manner of things for Mr. Nigel Hughes tonight. I don't know what's happening, but let's try to get him straight up. There he is. Thank you so much. Good night, sir. How are you?
Good night, Mark. How are you? Good to be in your program as always.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out, even as the last minute Lemon got in touch with you to ask you whether you were willing to be on with us for a few minutes. And we appreciate that you have dropped everything to have the last talk, the last word tonight, because it was a busy day. Press conference for you guys and a rebuttal by Barrett Jagdale. How are you feeling since your victory? Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. I am very humbled by the election. I am humbled to have been appointed leader of the Alliance for Change. And certainly for Dead Meat Party, we seem to be attracting a lot of government attention.
Well, I'm not going to speak on Dead Meat and Carrion Crow and so forth as a little chap growing up under quarantine, because they do, Carrion Crow do follow it sometimes. But let me ask you this question. Put aside the politics and all these sort of things. A lot of people have been hearing about Nigel Hughes, and every day is Nigel Hughes. Tell us a little bit about little Nigel Hughes. Where are you from? Quarantine, Philippi, Alness, Blackbush, Linden? Talk to us a little bit about that.
No, Mark, I came from Sobrinesville. I grew up in Earls Avenue, Sobrinesville, spent my entire life there until I got married and moved out. Left to go to university, but I'm a Sobrinesville guy.
You're a survival guy. What do you mean by that? Sobrinesville. Okay, yep. Yeah. Sobrinesville. I know that that area. That a couple of years ago, I was walking through it, and it said, "Ben Shop, you can't walk through it. You get mud on your foot." Right? Mud on your feet. The Big Shot area. Would you consider that a Big Shot area?
I suppose, yeah. I suppose I don't have a big shot. I think in traditional terms, you'd probably call it a middle class area. Yes.
So you grew up with a gold spoon in your mouth, as they would say.
No. I had a fortunate upbringing. Let me put it that way. I had a fortunate upbringing. I wouldn't pretend that it was anything other than that. It was pretty privileged. Yes.
Got you. All right. So let us touch on the fact that even growing up as a little child, you always wanted to be a lawyer, because I know your dad was a lawyer, Have you always wanted to be a lawyer? You want to be a cricketer or something, or a bauxite worker? Which one?
No, I think from the time I was born, my father particularly drilled it into me as the eldest that I had to take over the firm. He had started the law firm, and I knew from pretty early that my role was going to be to take that over one day as the family enterprise and continue to run it. So I knew that. I never, to be very honest, never contemplated another profession, because I knew, that would be my responsibility. Let me put it that way.
As you graduated from law school, you basically you took the bar, you passed the bar, you were sworn in as a lawyer. What was that? What's your memory like on that specific day, and maybe your first set of cases?
Actually, I was very, very privileged. I got admitted before two judges. I got admitted before Justice Bishop, and also before Justice Bernard. So they had two judges sitting when I was admitted. It was quite a memorable day for me. And as you know, well, I don't know if you do know, my father's firm is essentially commercial and civil. They did absolutely no criminal work. And I had a few conversations shortly after I came back with people who were, I was trying to sound out what I should be doing, because I didn't want people to say that I made it because of my father. And what they said is that your father and the firm has never done criminal. You should go in and make a name for yourself at criminal. I was exceedingly lucky, because the year I got admitted in 1988 was the same year they introduced that very draconian piece of legislation, the Narcotics Act. And I was lucky. I had a string of successes. So in the early days, I certainly developed a bit of a reputation for defending people who were charged with narcotics. And as you know, it was a pretty draconian act. They started locking up kids with 5 grams, 4 grams, 3 grams. And I really saw several lives wrecked, including lives of my close friends who got arrested. You didn't get bail. They ended up going into prison. They got ostracized. Even when they were acquitted, there was a stigma. And you actually saw, particularly the youth from the deprived areas, we used to say ghetto youth in those days, you saw them getting picked up by police for minuscule amounts, and they ending up in prison. And it also created a side effect. So the police would take advantage. They'd hold you and say that they found stuff on you, and they didn't actually find stuff on you. And then, there'd be extortion. So I saw it in real time wreck several lives.
Yep, I can attest to that, being in the system there myself and understanding, and even working alongside you as an activist, you the legal guy with a lot of those cases, that we were able to get the youngsters out, and some of them on bail as well, not just youngsters. Let me just caution some of our listeners, and one in particular, Flash Gordon. Please calm down. I invited Mr. Hughes here as a guest. I'm here to ask him questions. I'm not here, and I take umbrage to the fact that Flash Gordon, Mark, are you telling people not to vote for Mr. Norton in a diplomatic way, and they must vote for Mr. Nigel Hughes? Where have I even said that? Guys, let's not start off on the wrong side. Flash Gordon, please. You must be watching at some different show. Mr. Hughes is our guest here on 107.1 FM, and we will treat him with respect. This has to do with the fact that he's now leader of the AFC. It has to do with rebutting what Barra Jagdev said earlier. We will get to that. Calm your nerves down, please. When Mr. Norton has some time and he's on this show, the same respect will be accorded to him. Thank you. Now we will proceed. What was it like leading up to the nomination? Because we saw you got two groups nominated you. Mr. Duncan got about 15. Did you fear anywhere along the line that you will not succeed? What happened? Talk to us.
I actually didn't assume I would win at all. As you know, I haven't been in active politics since 2016 when I resigned, and certainly hadn't been actively involved. I wasn't actively involved as much as I could have been in Alliance for Change politics. I certainly was helping them behind the scenes. I think everybody knows that. And whenever Alliance for Change people got themselves into difficulty, I'd be there. I'd provide the representation at no cost to the party or to the person who might be in difficulty. So coming up to the nomination, I was uncertain up to the time of the vote. Sherrod has done a lot of work. He's got a large following. So there was no assumption on my part at all that I would prevail. Not at all.
No assumption at all. But what happened though? Because it took everybody by surprise. Two groups nominated you out of the 15 for Mr. Duncan. They just had a last minute change and say, well, look, they love you now. They want to vote for you. What happened? They just
No. I think what happened is when I got nominated, people didn't think I was going to accept the nomination. And the other thing is, I think because there was a lot of talk about consensus candidate, people thought, and I think people, certainly the leader at the time was pushing the fact that I should become a consensus candidate and have somebody else lead the party. So I think people generally were of the opinion that I was not actually going to accept the nomination. So I think I accepted the nomination just about 7 days before the actual election, maybe 10. And I think at that point, people started to say, well, maybe if we have a candidate here who has accepted the nomination, and at the same time, David declined and withdrew from the position of running for lead of the party. I think at that time, people probably started to re-examine their options.
Re-examining their options, indeed. At 24 minutes after 9 o'clock, Mark Benchup here, my guest, Mr. Nigel Hughes, now leader of the Alliance for Change. Let's talk about the process. For those who may be questioning whether it was transparent, whether it was democratic. Talk to us about that, please.
Okay, I wasn't involved at all with the process, but what happened was, and the AFC has a history of this, they bring in independent auditors. They bring in independent scrutineers, and on this occasion, we had Christopher Ram and his firm, and we also had Mr. Trevor Ben. They were in charge of the entire process, from the nomination, from discussing what process they would adopt. In this case, the voting started early at 10:30 in the morning, and there were two candidates for leader, myself and Sherrod, and the persons who were in the hall voted. Ballots were circulated. They made their choice. They voted. And there were people, for example, from Region 9 who couldn't make it to Georgetown because of the floods and the difficulty in getting to Georgetown. They voted online, electronically. And there are people from overseas, the US chapters, the Caribbean chapter, who also voted online.
All right, so you're satisfied that it was a fair and transparent process?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't see anything that caused me worry. And again, I think initially the US chapter was saying that they weren't getting through to Mr. Ram, but then they got through to him. And I think Mr. Ram is going to issue or has issued a report on the election. And the US chapter, I can't remember exactly how many, maybe they had 18 votes. The good thing about the result is that the difference was significant. It was more than people who might have claimed that they were not allowed to exercise their franchise or didn't exercise it immediately.
All right, now that you're leader of the Alliance for Change, AFC, what's your vision for the party? Over the years, we have heard a little bit of mumbling and rumblings about the party losing support, and the party is basically diminished significantly in terms of supporters. What's your vision, and what would you do to probably change that perception that the AFC is no longer as strong as it used to be?
A couple of things, Mark. Thanks for the question. One is, like any party that has not prevailed at an election, there's a period for retrospection, and I certainly made it one of my campaign themes, that the AFC has to sit down and look at what happened before it got into the alliance, after it got into the coalition, its performance while it was in office, and then its performance as it came out of office. And we need to examine that period to see what weaknesses we had, where we could have done various things differently, what impact that had on the electorate, and we have to have a commitment to truth and accuracy. So that's one of the things we're going to be doing within the next 2 to 3 weeks, is examining what went wrong at that stage, how it could have been done differently. Coalition politics, as you know, is not easy. You have to manage a lot of competing interests. Everybody thinks that their interest is primary. And of course, unless you have a framework to manage that, it's difficult. So that sort of examination is what we're going to be doing. That's the first thing. Second thing is, we have to get back into the habit, and we've started, of going into every bottom house, every street, every block, every corner, and speaking to people about not just the policies that we intend to adopt, but to listen to them. Because it's very important. Our ability to deliver the sort of social, economic, and political change that we want can only come from people getting a sense from the people what is important to them. We can make assumptions about what we think might be important to them, but unless we actually hear from them, meet with them, and engage with them, it's going to be difficult. So we've already started to go out to several communities. We're going to be engaging in trade unions, meeting with the trade unions. We're going to be meeting with the private sector. We're going to be meeting with women's organizations, youth organizations, the churches, the Hindu temples, the mosques, and getting a sense from them about their vision for Guyana, and also sharing with them our approach. So that's going to be the second phase. So we do the examination about what worked and didn't work. Then we go and we start meeting that wider, broader civil society. We will also be meeting people like you, clearly a very, very strong social influencer. I mean, you're almost like you have disciples following you. So we want to speak to you and people who have significant media following, because I think we can benefit from your views on not only where the AFC might have misstepped, but also what the vision of the future is. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I have family members on Straight Up on 107.1 FM. We call them family members. We're all part of a family. They got some of them just hop in and so forth. And you use the word disciples, but we're family members. This is
family members.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And so what would you say to folks who might be saying, maybe some of them in the audience, why should we trust the AFC when the AFC caused, quote unquote, tremendous amount of problems with a Charan Das, who was part of the AFC, but did what he did and caused that massive confusion in the country?
I would be the first to admit that Charan Das episode was an absolute disaster. What I will say is that there was a significant level of duplicity by Mr. Charan Das, because I've spoken to the hierarchy of the Alliance for Change. I wasn't there at the time when he defected, and none of them recall Charan Das ever complaining about any dissatisfaction, either personally or on behalf of the people in Kanji, Adelphi Kanji, where he's from. None of them remember that. Certainly on the day of the no confidence vote, and I think the day before, there was a closed meeting of members of parliament, and Charan Das at that stage expressed absolutely no discontent, no malcontent. As a matter of fact, he was, from what I've gathered, one of the persons who was strong in his conviction that he would not be voting against the coalition. Be that as it may, he had his plans. He must have been persuaded by whatever was offered to him, and he effectively deceived the coalition, brought it down, but more specifically, he was a member of the Alliance for Change, and we have to take responsibility for what he did. The fact that his actions were deceptive is not an excuse. What I would say is we must have missed a lot of signs. The intelligence, we should have had good intelligence on all our MPs. One of them is that I understand that Mr. Charan Das started to sell out his vehicles. He was closing his practice. He was migrating to Canada. And that's a big red flag, which we missed. We missed it, missed it. I mean, if somebody's doing that, that's a sign that, they're either unhappy, or if they're leaving, you may want to say to them, well, it's evident that you're leaving. Perhaps you should leave now and let us appoint somebody else in your place. The fact of that matter is, though, Mark, is that he was deceptive. If it was a case where he had the courage of his conviction and he had gone to, whether it was Mr. Ramchatan or Mr. Nagamutu or Mr. Troutman or any one of them, and said, look, I cannot in good conscience continue to represent the coalition or the Alliance for Change, then I think we would have had a greater sense of respect for the position he took. But up to half an hour before the vote to say that I'm fully committed, I'm not voting against I'm not going to vote for the motion, indicates duplicity. And we, as much as we have a jaded view of politicians, that level of duplicity ought not to be there. But he brought the government down, and we are where we are today as a result of it. What it does mean is that there needs to be a very enhanced system of scrutiny of people that we put into Parliament, and also people who, by their conduct, indicate that all is not well.
Thank you so much for that. But the signs were there, Mr. Hughes. The signs were there.
Mark,
lots of evidence were there. A man that walked into Parliament with two other individuals sitting right next to him with other folks, questionable characters, they were right there. The signs were there, Mr. Hughes. Even selling his properties or leasing it out to somebody else, his car, the signs were there, Mr. Hughes.
Mark, I am not even attempting to defend. I'm accepting full responsibility.
With that acceptance of full responsibility, do you see the need to apologize to the 218,000 plus supporters who went out there in the streets, in the rains, protested and voted for the coalition? Do you see the need to apologize for what Charon Das did to betray everyone? Go ahead.
Absolutely. What Charon Das did was an act of betrayal. He was a member of the Alliance for Change. And we apologize for that. Absolutely. We offer our profound apologies that someone who we trusted to represent the interests of the people acted not only duplicitously, but betrayed what the Alliance for Change stood for. We missed, and I say it again, we missed a lot of those signs. But he never at any time expressed any sense of concern, any position of concern, whether on behalf of the sugar workers in Kanji or any sugar workers. He never expressed any doubt. On the contrary, he said that he was fully committed and that he would not vote in favor of the motion. But I thank you for the apology. I thank you for the opportunity to apologize for that, because a lot of people were disappointed, deeply disappointed, and he caused the government to be defeated.
All right, Nigel Hughes, attorney at law. He's also the leader of the Alliance for Change. He was also, prior to becoming the leader of the Alliance for Change, he was once the chairman of the very Alliance for Change, but he resigned. Nigel, how do you explain some folks who might say, well, hey, you were once involved, you walked away, you dropped everything, you ran away as chairman and you resigned, and here it is now, you're back. Talk to us about that resignation and now that you're back.
Sure. Mark, I didn't run away. I left on a point of principle because there were difficulties. I've spoken about this, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity again. You may or may not recall that within, I think it must be 8 months of the coalition getting into government, they had lost a lot of the support that they gained when they came into government. There was a lot of euphoria when the when the coalition got into government. People were in a high. They had gotten rid of a corrupt regime. And I think in less than a year, that evaporated. Amongst the tensions that happened between the parties in their coalition was that there was a concentration of power, contrary to the accord that had been signed. There was a concentration of power in certain offices and individuals in one of our coalition partners. That concentration of power and exercise of power, especially those aspects that were contrary to the accord, was such that we had an emergency meeting. We, being the Alliance for Change, we had an emergency meeting on, I remember this distinctly, it was a Sunday, and we had it at the conference, the convention center. And we passed a unanimous resolution, which made its way into a press release indicating that one of our coalition partners was not acting consistently with the terms of the accord, and that there was too much concentration of power in certain offices which the Alliance for Change had no influence over. One of those was, of course, Cabinet Secretary. That release was published on the Sunday night, and by the Monday, I believe there were leaders in the Alliance for Change. I think one or two of them might have been out of the country, but they were aware of the meeting, but they didn't participate in the meeting. And when they were interviewed by the press, they said that they were unaware and they didn't subscribe to the contents of the press release. I was chairman of the party at the time, and this was a unanimous press release. The same day that that press release came out, there was a picket mounted by supporters of our coalition partner outside of the Kaitro News, saying that Nigel Hughes was anti-coalition and words to the effect that I should go. And for me, if I was chairman of the party, I was at that meeting, the Prime Minister was at the meeting where that resolution was taken. From where I come, then if that expression of lack of confidence in the chairman of the party is as strong as the leaders of the day made it out to be, then the options are very limited. And I resigned on principle. I didn't want to stand in the way of the success of the coalition. One of the coalition partners were clearly picketing, asking me to go, saying that I was anti-coalition. And if the leaders of the party that I was chairman of didn't think it was sufficiently important, I think my options were very limited. And in those circumstances, I resigned.
All right, 39 minutes after 9 o'clock. Straight up, Nigel Hughes, attorney at law, also the leader of the Alliance for Change. We're moving on. I know our executive producer asked Mr. Hughes for 15 minutes. We are just here taking advantage of that 15 minutes. We just finished 5 minutes, so we have 10 minutes more to go. Mr. Hughes.
You must be working at GCOM.
Probably not. Let me ask you this, sir, with regards to allegations of conflict of interest.
Sure.
Representation of certain companies. And that how can you represent those companies, those big companies doing business in Guyana, and now you're sitting there as a leader of a political party? How do you separate this sort of a conflict, or do you see it as a conflict of interest? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, Mark, I think we need to just examine and dig beyond the dramatic headlines of people saying conflict of interest. Hughes, Fields and Stobie, the law firm, is 52 years old. It was started by my father and two other partners, and they have been representing oil companies since the 1970s. Every drill round, we get consulted by the various oil companies. Andrew Pollard, senior counsel, came back to Ghana before I did, joined the firm, and I joined the firm about a year after him. Going forward, getting to the early 2000s, we figured there was only a matter of time before, this is long before the discovery of oil, it was only a matter of time before there was going to be some sort of a discovery in Guyana. And we decided that we would actually set up a formal oil and gas department in Guyana. In the law firm, sorry, not in Guyana. That got set up. Various oil companies came to us. Exxon, the way the law firm operates, it has more than one partner. I just happen to be the managing partner. Mr. Pollard is a senior partner. Exxon has been a client, an exclusive client of Mr. Andrew Pollard since the early 2000s. I have not had anything to do with them. Even though their registered office is there, he exclusively manages them. After I became chairman of the party in 2011, 2012, I continued to be a partner in the firm, as I am now. And after the discovery, Andrew managed them before, during, and after the discovery up to now. In relation to negotiations on the contract with Guyana, I just want to explain so that your listeners get a sense of how this operates. There is no major international company, none, that represents that relies on one lawyer. They hire series of law firms. Some law firms have over 2,000 lawyers. They hire the best and the brightest in the United States. They hire the best researchers. They hire the best professors from the university to advise them in every single aspect of the enterprise that they are undertaking. That's why it's pretty foolhardy for countries that are not as well endowed as those companies to believe that they can rely on one or two persons to go negotiate with them, because those companies have the capacity to model out every possible outcome of any situation they're entering into, and they're well prepared. Having said that, Exxon, big foreign company, their head office is in Houston, and there is no way they would rely on local counsel in any country, not just Guyana, any country in which they are going into explore or to produce petroleum. They're going to rely on local counsel. They rely on local counsel for local law and probably for advice in the local scenario. Those decisions, the research that goes into them, all of that is done at head office. But having said that, Mr. Pollard is the person who exclusively represents Exxon, and technically he's the one that, not technically, he's the one that manages that portfolio. I get elected as leader of the Alliance for Change. The Alliance for Change has zero influence over government policy. So right now, the only potential conflict you have is between me being the leader and a member of a law firm that speaks for Exxon and the policy that the Alliance for Change will adopt in relation to oil and gas. And I've said this long before now, and I'll say it again, and we said it in the press conference today. The business of oil and gas requires high-level technical expertise, experience, and the ability to co-opt people who have the relevant expertise to advise. So the Alliance for Change has decided, under my guidance, that they will establish an advisory committee on oil and gas headed by two experts who've got experience, Dr. Vince Adams and David Patterson, and that they exclusively will deal with the management of the AFC's policy on oil and gas. They have the full authority to co-opt into that group, into that committee, local and foreign expertise on oil and gas, and I will have nothing to do with that group. I will have no intervention. I will not participate. I will not address the issue of the Alliance for Change policy on oil and gas. As you know, Vince Adams has been an advocate long before I decided I was coming back into politics, and he has had a strong position on oil and gas. So any potential conflict that exists, as far as I'm concerned, is that I'm the leader, and that is being addressed by the committee. If and when I become elected to office, whatever office it is, president, prime minister, whatever office, I will relinquish all links with the law firm, Hughes, Fields, and Stobie, once I'm in that public office. That is an undertaking that I give. I will relinquish it. I can't relinquish it in advance because I haven't been elected to office. So I will relinquish any links with the entire law firm and consequently the entire client portfolio. To suggest that I am in a position to say to Mr. Pollard, who is a partner in the firm, you must say to that client, you must cease being a member of the firm because I am now leader of the Alliance for Change, I think displays a lack of comprehension, one, of how law firms operate. We're the largest firm in the country. And
do you think it's a lack of comprehension of how law firms operate? You're now the leader of a political party running for office.
yeah.
You just said that you're going to wait until, and if elected into office, then relinquish. Do you know of any other part of the world where somebody is the managing director of a... Go ahead, sir.
No, I want you also to bear in mind that I've said that the only other conflict that exists prior to being elected is what the Alliance for Change policy is on oil and gas. And I've said that I will have absolutely nothing to do with that. I've identified two people that have infinitely more experience in oil and gas than I have, and they will deal with policy.
Just out of curiosity, you're one of them, or the managing director of a law firm that has all the lawyers, Mr. Pollard, Senior Counsel Pollard, if he's watching tonight, reputable individual. he is managing the account of Exxon.
Excellent.
But even though he is managing the account, I'm almost certain that you guys share the profits.
No, we don't operate like that.
Every
No,
cent he is paid by Exxon or Exxon
absolutely.
Mobil pays it goes
It
directly
goes to
to
Mr. Pollard. Yeah, of course. They
not
are
the law.
clients. No, exactly. They are clients who are clients of mine, who are exclusively my clients, and their income generated from them comes to me. And similarly, income generated from Exxon goes exclusively to Mr. Pollard. Doesn't come to me.
What is your, thank you, sir. What is your take on the whole deal with Exxon and the billions upon billions of dollars that's being profited by this company? And folks are of the view, Guyanese are of the view that nothing is basically, they're not even getting crumbs. If you were to be elected into office, whether president or prime minister or whatever position you hold, what would be your take on Exxon?
Okay. I don't want to go contrary to what I said in the press conference this afternoon. And what I said in the press conference was matters of oil and gas, those need to be directed at the present moment to Dr. Vince Adams and Mr. David Patterson. You're asking me when I get into office. When I get into office, or if I get into office, the question is, what? First of all, the most important thing is, what is the data going to say? A lot of people, and I think most people, have a view that the contract is not the one that's most favorable to us. That's a fact. But you're asking me to prospect in relation to what the position will be. I have to stand by a very strict position that I took, or the party has taken, which is, insofar as oil and gas is concerned, those questions have to go to Dr. Adams. And by the time we get into office, the Alliance for Change's policy on oil and gas, as formulated by Dr. Adams and Mr. David Patterson, will be the policy that we would have campaigned on, and that will be the policy that will be implemented once we go into government. If we happen to be in a coalition, allow me, if you don't mind, if we happen to be in a coalition, then the policy in relation to oil and gas is going to be in the manifesto. So it's not a case when you get into office, you can run off in a direction that's 180 degrees or even 90 degrees to that. All of that's going to be in the manifesto. And the way it gets there is that same oil and gas subcommittee headed by Dr. Adams and Mr. Patterson, they will formulate it.
As leader of the Alliance for Change running for a top office, do you see the deal with Exxon as being a good deal? You, the leader, we want to get from you. You're the leader. We don't want to respect Dr. Vince Adams, and so we understand that. But from your standpoint, you're the leader.
From my standpoint, it is not the most advantageous deal. That's a clear case. But again, we have to understand the process. You may have a view on it, but this is a sophisticated industry. It's the largest and most powerful commodity in the world, and there is a way to deal with it. It's not a question of whether one man, and that's the problem with Ghana, because we've got so accustomed to one person making all the decisions and saying this is the best thing, therefore this is what it must be. That you have to have structures, you have to be driven by data, because I would imagine an oil and gas committee will come up not only with a program, not only in relation to the royalty and the tax, it will come up with a comprehensive program that deals with the entire industry. One of the first things I would do, if and when elected, is establish a petroleum commission. Because it's not just a question of the percentages, it's a question of the contract, it's a question of the terms, and one has to have a pretty robust, pretty robust set of institutions that is gathering data and providing you with optimal advice on how to address this.
You spoke about cash grant. We're sticking to this for a minute before we move on to some other questions. Cash grants. Talk to us about that and why.
Okay. This good fortune that we have, the whatever it is, 15 billion barrels sitting offshore, and I think that's a conservative estimate. This good fortune we have is a good fortune to which every single citizen of this country is entitled to an equal share. It is not up to any politician, whether the present ones or any future politicians, to come around and ride round and say, oh, here's 160,000 cash grant, here is money for flood relief. No. We should, once we have devised a long-term plan, decide what we are going to be transferring to the citizens directly as a cash grant. So when we work out what we're putting to infrastructure, what we're putting to education, what we're putting to defense, what we're putting to relieving poverty, included in that is what are we giving the citizens directly because they're citizens as a cash grant to them. They don't have to jump through hoops about how they're going to get it or how they're going to spend it. You give it to them. And the best way to protect that is by legislation. So you remove the discretion that is vested in the politician. And that's part of the problem we face in Guyana. Everything goes to the politician. It's a winner-take-all system. And the politicians decide when you're going to get this money, who's going to get this money, whether it's flood relief, whether you're giving it to the cane harvesters. And you end up with too much discretion, too much favoritism. You end up with clear discrimination in what belongs to the actual people. So let's give it to them directly by way of a cash grant.
And what will be that amount? Is it monthly?
I suppose we'd all have to be guided by the economists on what's the best way to do it, whether you do it annually or whether you do it monthly. And I couldn't give you the figure now because I haven't seen what the crunch numbers look like to be able to say to you, Mark, it's going to be $5,000 a year or it's going to be something else. That has to be driven by the data that says the country can safely pay this amount by virtue of cash grant without putting at risk the economic standing of the country, the investment climate, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be a pretty scientific undertaking, but it should be protected by statute.
Thank you so much. Lots of cash grants, education cash grants, disc cash grants, flood cash grants, COVID cash grants, and now Mr. Nigel Hughes is talking about something that we're familiar with, the cash grants from the oil revenue. Mr. Hughes.
Talking about direct transfers. Same thing, direct transfers.
Yeah, cash grants through direct transfers. I wish we knew the figures by now because that would have been good. I probably would have been able to move right back to Guyana. But Mr. Hughes, Bara Jagdeo seemed to take umbrage at the fact that you are trying to deny that you are actually a conflict of interest. You're leader of the AFC. You have an interest in these big companies. And by virtue of that, you can't really represent the people. Here's an opportunity to respond again, especially to what he said earlier this afternoon.
Mark, first thing is Mr. Jagdeo said that the Alliance for Change is a dead party. It has no future. Unless he is a relative and he is mourning at the funeral, I don't understand why he is so obsessed with the Alliance for Change to the extent that after our press conference today, he holds an interview to address our press conference and to make some ad hominem attacks at the leader of the Alliance for Change. He speaks about a conflict of interest. And therefore, I see he got Kit Nascimento to say that I am not entitled at all, at any time, to lead this country because my law firm represents Exxon, which is the company, well, it's the sole operator at the moment in Guyana. I think I spent a lot of time with you just now explaining what the conflict is. Bara Jagdeo is not concerned about whether or not I have a conflict of interest. Bara Jagdeo is concerned about the Alliance for Change being on the rise. That's what he's concerned about. And therefore, he is going to pick every living thing that he thinks he can throw at the Alliance for Change and its leadership in an attempt to distract them. I will give you just 3 examples of where I have acted in the interest, I believe, of the people, contrary to the wishes of my party. And I will ask Mr. Jagdeo if he has ever done that. You will recall, as soon as the Alliance for Change, the coalition got into government, they started to remove the vendors. The same women who had been marching down the street trying to get the coalition into government, they started to remove the vendors from Stabroek. I immediately, the afternoon that they started to remove them, in my capacity as chairman, I went there and I stood up and I fought for the vendors as best I could, including commencement of legal proceedings, and said to the coalition government, you have to be out of your mind if you are going to throw people who have spent the last 10 to 15 years marching down the street, especially the women. One. So I did that against the party. I don't know if Mr. Jagdeo has ever had the courage of conviction to go against a decision his party has made that he disagrees with. Second, when the local government elections came around, I said to the party, I don't believe that the big parties should participate in local government elections because it brings all the racial nastiness from national elections down to the local government election. And therefore, you may have communities in which they're good citizens. They're people who may be vendors, doctors, lawyers, engineers, who want to run on a local level because they want to get their communities into a better state. And they're not going to do that if you bring national politics into the local government election. I not only said that to the party, I went to Bartica, first place, to support a local party called Bigger, that was running for local government against the major parties because I believed local government elections should be local. Again, I went against the interest of the party. I don't believe Mr. Jagdeo has had the courage of his convictions to ever do that in the People's Progressive Party. After I resigned from the Alliance for Change, as chairman of the Alliance for Change in 2016, early in 2016, April the 12th, I think it was, April the 12th or 11th, somewhere around there. Within 2 months of that resignation, I realized that it is important for Guyanese businesses and interests to be represented in the oil industry. And I incorporated, along with others, a not-for-profit organization called the Guyana Oil and Gas Association, GOGA, dedicated to making sure Guyanese got a fair share. This was local content long before we started the commercial production of oil. Not only did I lead that organization we brought in at our own expense people from various places, Trinidad, the United States, and local experts to talk to the Guyanese in a series of lectures about what becoming an oil economy was like. This is 2016, June. You will recall that the government of the day did not want to release the terms of the production sharing agreement. There was a lot of talk about it. The first person to internationally call for the government of the day, which was the coalition government, to release the terms of the production sharing agreement, I did that in Trinidad at the energy conference, to the consternation to a lot of people in the industry. So when you say that I am not going to fight for Guyana, I don't ask you to listen to what I say. I say merely look at what I've done. And finally, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, PPP, PNC, WPA, everybody at some stage, if they think they are in difficulty, end up at the doors of Hughes, Fields, and Stobie. And I don't take a decision, your PPP or your PNC and your Working People's Alliance. I come out because I believe that citizens are entitled to decent representation in those cases. And I don't charge for it. You know that. So when you say to me, you're going to sell out Guyana to Exxon, I have a difficulty with that. I'm not asking you to believe in me like some evangelistic priest saying, heaven's coming sometime in the future. All I say to you is, please look at what I have done in difficult times against my interests, because on the occasions when I have stood up and called for the PSA, when I formed the Guyana Oil and Gas Association, those were not in the interest of Exxon. I stood up because I realized what was coming. And so, unlike other politicians, I don't sell you the future. I just merely say, if you're not persuaded by my previous actions, you're not persuaded. That's life. I can't, do more than that. But I say to you, please, when you're giving fair consideration, do that. Ask yourself, when this gentleman who's spending a lot of time talking about me and conflict of interest, when has he ever taken the courage of his convictions and acted against his own interest and the interest of his party. That's all I would say.
All right, Nigel Hughes there, talking about the conflict of interest. We know Barra Jagdev is not the person who should be talking about that. Barra Jagdev is not the person who should be talking about morality or anything at all. We already know that. All of us know that. Even the PPP supporters don't trust him. That's a fact. So we don't want to hear that coming from Barra Jagdev at all. Look, we're looking at the time. Nigel Hughes here with us before we go. Lots and lots of questions we have for you. You're no stranger to us here at 107.1 FM. But let me thank you, though. Whenever I knocked at your door for representation, you've always been there. And I thank you publicly again. I've done so several times. I noticed some folks in the audience, they're still ticklish about this. And as a lawyer can decide who they want to represent or not. But you represented somebody that they're cussing out still. And you said, let the system work. Were you to go back in time?
Mark, sorry.
If
I could, if you don't.
But may I finish the question first?
Sure.
If you were to go back in time, would you in retrospect say, oh, man, maybe I shouldn't have taken Mark Menchap's case. Maybe I shouldn't have taken Tom Jones' case or whatever. Do you reflect and have that sort of thinking in your mind that maybe you should not have?
Oh. And I can explain. I'm happy to. I'm more than appreciative of the question and willing to answer it. And that's this way. Lawyers are not priests. When you walk into a lawyer's office, you expect that you will get the best advice in relation to whatever issue that has brought you there. I do not take a moral position on my clients, particularly as a criminal defense lawyer. If you took a moral position on what a client is charged with, you probably would not represent anybody because the offenses are all very individual.
Mr. Hughes, I don't interject. Is it the moral of the story, whether they're guilty or not, or the client?
No. Mark, when you come to me, do I say, oh my God, Mark's charged with treason? He's trying to overthrow the government. People march into the office. No, I look at the evidence. If I'm in a position to be able to provide you with the legal expertise you need to get you out of the difficulty, that's it. That's what I do. When a person from the, again, classic example, when they arrested Valda Lawrence, high-ranking, successful minister of government of the People's National Congress, she called me. Are you saying that I should judge whether or not Valda was good at being a minister, whether Valda was involved in the elections? No, that's not my role. That's not my role as a lawyer. I am not here to judge. When you hire me in that capacity, I give you the best I can give in the circumstances. And that's where I stand. It may not be a popular position, but that's where I stand professionally. The last thing I want is some client thinking that when I give them advice, it is somehow tainted by how I may view them, tainted by politics, or tainted by some other consideration that is not relevant to their circumstances. And that's the fact of it. Now, many people may say, yeah, it may be correct legally, but politically it's difficult. Yes, it is. Not going to deny that. But and again, I say I stand by that position. If it causes people a level of discomfort that they think is unacceptable, I understand that position. But all I ask you to do is similarly listen to what it is that I am saying about what a professional lawyer should do. And that's what we take an oath specifically that says, with whether or not the lucre is there, you have an obligation to protect your client. Once you start playing politics with your client, you're in problems.
Thank you so much for that. What's your relationship like with the opposition leader? We heard recently that he says that he is prepared to go it alone with the PNC. If I'm correct, that's what I read. What is your take on getting back in with the PNC as a coalition partner? And what is your take on Aubrey Norton as
Aubrey Norton
opposition?
is sure. Aubrey Norton is a very experienced politician. He's been in politics for an extraordinarily long time. He's very skilled. I enjoy a good personal relationship with him. And it's entirely a matter for the People's National Congress whether they want to go it alone or not. He has expressed the view that his party is of the view that it should go it alone. And if they were to get into a coalition, that a PNC member should be the coalition candidate. And that's the position of his party. I can't comment on the position of his party. That's if that's what they want, that's what they want. It's up to the members of any political party to decide what they want to do. What I have said, on both personally and on behalf of the party, is that we are going to go out to a very broad collection of representatives, both from parliamentary parties as well as civil society, and speak about Guyana. That's the most important thing here. Guyana is the most important thing, and what is best for Guyana. If in those calculations, it appears that we can put together a coalition that will represent a broad section of interest, and that we can come up with a joint plan about the future of this country that benefits everybody fairly, then that's it. If it is we are unsuccessful in that venture, then that is also it. But I cannot comment on what the People's National Congress thinks that is in their best interest. That's a matter for the People's National Congress. And
consensus candidate been throwing around. But go ahead. You were making a point.
No. So you can only be consensus insofar as you've got two or more people agreeing on a particular position. If one person has already identified their position and it's not one in which they lend themselves to a consensual approach, then that's it. We have to face the reality.
In a coalition with the PNC again, would you support Aubrey Compton Norton as president of that coalition?
Forgive me for being repetitious. I said this on Saturday, and perhaps a lot of your listeners didn't hear it. The Alliance for Change is concentrating at the moment in the immediate future on building back the Alliance for Change and building it out to a level which it has never been before in terms of support, in terms of representation for people. The issue of consensus candidate or coalition is not, at the present moment, a focus of our attention. We are always interested in what is the best interest of Guyana. And in determining what the best interest of Guyana, there's several things you got to do. You got to do a thing like a poll that says, what is the potential best path to take that will lead you to office? What is the best path to identify candidates who are eligible to be consensus candidates? May well turn out Ms. Walton is the consensus candidate. So, but this has got to be done scientifically. So it's not a question of whether we would go into a coalition with the People's National Congress. It's a question of the broad approach. What I will say to you is that the whole idea of consensus candidate will not be limited to two parties. It will be limited to several parties and civil society players, because we have to talk about what is going to be the best interest of Guyana and what programs we are going to adopt and present to the population for them to consider as the best or better option for Guyana. I don't think this should not be reduced to a personality clash between Aubrey Norton and Nigel Hughes. That's crazy. This is not about two individuals. This is about the People's National Congress is the second oldest party here. We are kids on the block, and this is about what is in the best interest of Guyana.
What's in the best interest of Guyana, indeed. And health-wise, you're ready to rock and roll. You're just ready to hit the campaign trail. I mentioned health-wise, not to be like the American journalists that ask the candidates these questions, but many years ago, you unfortunately suffered a heart attack. How are you feeling now, physically, and ready to hit the campaign trail?
I'm feeling good, but it's always inshallah. Always, inshallah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nigel. Is there anything you want to say to the folks who are watching in Guyana and outside of Guyana as to the man who is hoping to become the next president or the next prime minister of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana? Leave them with some sort of hope.
I believe Guyana has a bright future ahead of it if we manage it properly and if we make sure that we can lift people out of poverty. We can change the educational system, but we can only do this in a structured, considered way. I don't believe the present system of ad hocery and one-man domination, where one man is in charge of natural resources, finance, and oil and gas. The days for that sort of banana republic behavior are long gone. We have to get contemporary. We've got to be smart. We are dealing with a much different set of circumstances globally, and we need to be adept at that. I believe that Guyana will act in its best interest, and we will, whether it's in 2024 or 2025, we will identify a pathway in which all of us can benefit equally, fairly, and justly to the heritage of this country.
I know I said finally because you did say that the Alliance for Change, and I wish you guys all the best, though.
You're very kind, and I thank you.
Is on a mission to just basically get the party up and running and win back support and all these different things and bring in supporters and so forth. The Alliance for Change that we were accustomed to in 2006 showed what is considered a multiracial face. All of those who have been in the 3 or 4 top spots are of one ethnic group, one ethnicity. Do you see that as a problem of becoming a multiracial party that it was once described in 2006, 2011, and possibly 2015?
Okay, Mark, I will start off by saying that on my slate, we left several of those positions vacant in the hope that they would be filled with people who could best represent the diversity of the party. We, for example, promoted Derek Basdio as the vice chair for the elections. The membership of the party spoke. That does not mean, and I wish to make this very clear, it doesn't mean that Nigel Hughes is your presidential candidate. It doesn't mean that any of those persons who took the top spots will be the vice president. The party remains strongly multiracial, and we appreciate the fact that we do not have in our ranks necessarily all the talent that is required to lead this country. So one of the early things that we are doing is reaching out to people outside of the party of all races to not only get involved, but to get involved in prominent positions so that when you look at our candidates for leadership, when you look at that team, it will reflect not only the ethnic diversity, it will reflect predominance of women in the leadership. It will also reflect a concentration of youth in that leadership. That's the team you need to look at that's going into the elections. I think the fact that the membership voted the way they did is not a reflection on the way in which we are going to approach the elections and the people who we will identify for positions of significant influence in the party when it gets into government.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nigel Hughes here, attorney at law. This is a different interview tonight. Mr. Nigel Hughes is a politician. He's the leader of a political party. And some of you might be saying, oh, you've never seen me question Mr. Nigel Hughes like that. But he is a politician now. And I bet he appreciates those questions. Thank you so much. And again,
I'd like to continue to encourage you to ask the hard questions. I mean, that's the way people get to see what their candidates stand for. If they're persuaded, they're persuaded. If they're not persuaded, we have not been as effective as we could do. But I thank you, and I appreciate the fact that now I get a different approach from you.
Thank you so much.
Again, as I always do, Mark, thank you for the good work.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Please give my regards on behalf of all of us to your wife, Member of Parliament Kathy Hughes as well. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night, and to your listeners as well.
Thank you, sir. All right. Nigel Hughes there for you guys. My name is Mark Benchop. I'll be back on Monday. Wayne Caesar's going to be on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's discussion with Nigel Hughes, the politician now. Not Nigel Hughes, the lawyer. He's still a lawyer, but he's Nigel Hughes, the politician. And I will tighten my tie now with these guests. Those who are running for office, political office, those who hold political office. I'm going to tighten my tie on those individuals coming up here. Nigel is no exception. Nigel has been my friend for many years. He's represented me a heck of a lot of times, pro bono. Putting that aside, once he's on this show, I want to assure you guys that there's no conflict of interest. He represented me pro bono in the past. There's no conflict of interest there at all. I will ask him the tough questions because at the end of the day, this system that we have here on 107.1 FM will work. I love you guys. God bless you. All of you. It's been a healthy. Oh, before we go, we saw a lot of things. The UK got a new prime minister, John Oliver. Was right. They're saying the Conservative Party just faced an epic wipeout at the polls. Gosh, go blind. What's happening there in the UK? Rishi is gone. A new man stepped in, and that's it. That's democracy. Let me take this time to say congratulations to all of those who sat the, we knew it back in my days, common entrance, but now it's called National Grade 6 Assessment Exams. But here is what, congrats to all of the students, every single one of them. But here's what I want to say, that the fact that majority of those in the top spots are from private schools, it just paints the picture that the failure for public school system is Priya Manik-Chand. There's no way that I'm going to be running the entire Ministry of Education and private schools are going to be beating me like this every single time. Shame on Priya Manik-Chand. There's no success story there for her at all, none whatsoever. But kudos to the private schools and kudos to all of the students, whether they made it to QC, Bishops, or wherever, or Winifred Gaskin Memorial, or New Amsterdam Multi. It doesn't matter where. Congratulations to all of them. But shame on Priya Manik-Chand. She has failed the public school system. Bad leadership. Simple as that. All right. Pay the teachers more. Somebody's saying that. But quickly before we go again, what's happening with the police force, guys? What's happening? Okay, let me say this, what's happening here. Head of Special Branch, that was this controversial guy, Errol Watts, is now Operations. And Operations is a key position. It's kind of a promotion. And then you get this guy, Deputy Operations, Ravindra Budram, is now in charge of administration. Administration is another key position, can be seen as a promotion. And then you got the Deputy Commissioner of Administration. He was removed from that position and placed at Special Branch. That's kind of like a demotion, kind of like, not necessary. Some police folks may not see it that way, but for him to be removed from from administration to Special Branch, head of Special Branch, I will see that as a demotion. But the guy, Rabindranath Budram, is probably going to be the next Commissioner of Police. Either Rabindranath Budram or the guy who had Soku, Karim Baksh. Keep an eye out for those two names, Karim Baksh or Budram. Jagdeo may be in favor of Budram and Irfan Ali may be in favor of Karim Baksh. Read between the lines what I just said there and why. Now, Rabindranath Budram is very controversial in the eyes of international law enforcement agencies. It is reported that he failed polygraph test miserably, failed it. And so he may be on the radar. Again, I'm saying here, he may be on the radar of law enforcement agencies outside of Guyana. And some of these guys may be connected to the folks who were sanctioned, the Mohammeds and so forth. They have to explain that. But this so-called shakeup is not a shakeup because of some sort of investigations and blah, blah, whatever. What we do know is that Jagjia was not comfortable with Hicken because Hicken is allegedly connected to the Mohammeds. Simple as that. We'll talk more about that next Monday, same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Join Wayne Caesar tomorrow, 7 o'clock, right here. 7 o'clock for Over to You. I really don't want to go, but I got to go, guys. It's Friday. I love you all. God bless you, every single one of you. Whether you like me, whether you don't like me, it doesn't matter. God bless you, all of you. So long.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata, Francis Vietnam, and since 1965, I become a voter. And I always place my ex next to the cop. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
Oh, Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
Sweet people, come here we go. Sweet people, come here we go. We got the cards and cutlass and hoe. Oh, my ninja, can I cut and price na play a dance? Price and flower, they're a chopper, what you mean a dance? We walk hard in the back of the hand, get them gone. We walk hard in the back of the hand, get them gone. When we get the money, we gone in the pan. Oh, my ninja, oh.
Hey fans, it's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
You said valid votes counts, votes cast must more votes.
How old are you?
I am 28, sir.
And where do you live?
In Kitty.
You own your own home?
Not as yet.
Apply for a house lot?
Not.
Well, sit down.